Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Dialogue. I'm Taimur Shamil. Modi government, by revoking the special status for illegally Indian occupied Kashmir, has basically exposed itself, and this exposure is obviously very evident. It is evident because India cannot suppress the spirit of the people of Kashmir. It has never been able to do that for the last 73 years. Every day we have seen that the people of Kashmir has been striving for independence. They have been striving for what they want, what everybody wants in this world, and that is their right to freedom and their right to live the way that they want to live. We'll be discussing about Kashmir, Indian occupation, Indian illegal occupation of Kashmir, Indian occupied Kashmir, with our special guest. We are joined by President Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Mr. Sardar Masood Khan. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. President.
Walaikum assalam.
Welcome to the show. Discussing about illegally Indian occupied Kashmir, we see the way Indians have been suppressing the people of Kashmir every day. They have been trying to do that, but they could never suppress the spirit of Kashmir. The revocation of 370 and 35A, do you think that this new wave of violence in Kashmir can suppress the people of Kashmir, their resilience?
Not at all, but let me tell you that the game has gone beyond occupation. It is no more occupation. Last year, they annexed the territory illegally, and they showed the occupied territory of Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, and Jammu and Kashmir, two parts, as part of the Indian Federation. So this is a blatant violation of international law because the territory of Kashmir, which is under their occupation, and now which they have annexed, is foreign territory. It doesn't belong to them. The international law doesn't recognize it. And no other country recognizes it because the issue of Jammu and Kashmir is on the agenda of the Security Council on August the 5th, which marked 1 year of Indian occupation and their colonization of the territory. The Security Council met in an informal session. So this demonstrates that India occupies the territory illegally. Now, your second question, whether this has in any way affected the spirit for freedom and liberty and self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and my answer is no. As a matter of fact, when 900,000 troops walk into your homeland, brutalize people, rape women and blind people, and kill young men, they cannot kill your spirit for freedom, a spirit that they have been nurturing with their lives and blood for the past 73 years.
Right. And Mr. President, the way Hindutva, RSS and Shiv Sena, they have been exposed internationally, this is unprecedented. How important is to expose the ideology and the mindset that fosters this violence in Kashmir?
Hindutva, which is a new incarnation of fascism and Nazism, this time in the name of Hindu supremacy, this has been exposed. You're right. It has been exposed internationally. Very leading, prestigious media networks have highlighted this aspect of Indian polity. And they have all declared that this doctrine is dangerous not only for Indian society, Indian politics, Indian economics, but also for South Asia, for the peace and security of South Asia. Because India, by pursuing this doctrine, wants to turn the entire neighborhood into a Akhand Bharat, the entire South Asian region into a Akhand Bharat. So this has been condemned by the international community. Also, many powerful voices have opposed this fascism, and they have warned the world that this kind of violent extremism will spell disaster for the region and for the world. But the real challenges and the problem is that those very countries whose civil society condemns the acts of Indian extremists, their governments are silent and they haven't taken any action. I mean, go back to 1945, last century, and what the followers of Hindutva are doing in India or Kashmir. I mean, people like Amit Shah or Rajnath Singh or Narendra Modi, they had to be presented to Nuremberg tribunals, and they were held accountable for their crimes against humanity and for genocide and for Holocaust. Now, a genocide is taking place in Kashmir. And in fact, India has started a genocide or ethnic cleansing in India itself. But there are no tribunals. There are no special tribunals for trying these warmongers and these criminals who are committing crimes against humanity.
Right. And Mr. President, in last 1 year, the Security Council has discussed Kashmir for almost 3 times. Is it a diplomatic blow to India? Do you see it that way?
Well, in a way, yes, because India has been harping on the bilateral or unilateral dimension of the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. You know, until last year, until August the 5th last year, they used to say there's a bilateral issue. And they have used this terminology to confuse foreign officers around the world. Because when you approach foreign officers or foreign governments, they say that it's a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan and they would resolve it. It's a lie because, 3 parties to the dispute to begin with. Pakistan, India, and the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And the people of Jammu and Kashmir are the most important or the most pivotal party because they have to decide their own future. And in a way, the United Nations is also a party to the dispute because they were the guarantors for the realization of the right to self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. So when the Kashmir issue is discussed in the Security Council chambers, albeit behind the scenes and in informal meetings, that explodes India's myth that it's a bilateral issue or it is a domestic issue of India. So you're rightly saying that it's a blow, but it is not strong enough to stop India from killing Kashmiris and from grabbing their land and from importing Hindus from all over India and settling them illegally in the occupied territory and pursuing settler colonialism blatantly in violation of international humanitarian law and international human rights law.
Right. Mr. President, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was President Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Sardar Masood Khan, shedding light on the situation in Indian occupied Kashmir and the way Pakistan has been standing with the people of Kashmir. We are joined by 2 special guests, Ambassador Asif Durrani, renowned senior ambassador, an expert on Pakistan's foreign policy, and we are also joined by Dr. Waqas Ali Kausar. He's an expert on foreign affairs. I welcome you both. Ambassador Durrani, I'll start with the situation in Kashmir and the way Pakistan and China both have been trying to raise up this issue at almost all international platforms and especially United Nations Security Council. How do you see that in last 1 year, Security Council has discussed Kashmir for almost like three times? What is the significance of these meetings at Security Council? And do you see that India is pressurized by these meetings at Security Council?
I think Security Council informally discussed 3 times. Last one was on 5th of August, of course, on Pakistan's request. Informal, when you say, then it is not obligatory, not even a presidential statement, which is the weakest form of expression from the UN Security Council was issued. And for obvious reasons, because any discussion has to have the agreement of all the permanent members, especially. If one of them opposes, then a formal meeting cannot be held. So India did try to stop even the informal discussion, but since China had proposed this meeting, so is also a tradition that the permanent members, even if they don't agree, they at least discuss the issues informally. So this is what precisely has happened on 5th of August and in the previous 2. One thing is significant, and that is that India always opposed raising of the Kashmir dispute at any forum. And when it came to this, when discussing this dispute, they would always refer it to the bilateral mechanism under Shimla Agreement. But even under Shimla Agreement, India never discussed this dispute. So therefore, after this action last year, when they revoked Article 370 and 35A, actually, India itself has internationalized the dispute. Now, not only at the Security Council, but international media, as well as human rights organizations, they severely condemned and criticized India's actions in the illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir.
Right.
So, in that respect, whatever schemes India might have tried to cobble together have not worked to their advantage. And but at the same time, there's also a fact that Kashmiris are the worst sufferers due to Indian action. And everyone now knows that it is now over a year that Kashmiris are seized by their military. Over 15,000 youths have been arrested. They have been transported out of the occupied state to different jails in India. And their parents are being pressurized that they have to sign a good behavior certificate, and they have to that they will not involve themselves in activities, quote unquote, against India. So, in that respect, India has caused tensions not with Pakistan but also with China. You know that on accession, Indian Home Minister Amit Shah had said in the Parliament in Lok Sabha that we will also get back accession. So, of course, China did not like this, and at a time when India and China have been steadily moving, they
Right.
trade.
Right.
It is almost
We are joined by
and this
Dr. Kausar. Dr. Kausar, welcome to the show. Prime Minister Imran Khan has called this revocation of 370 and 35A as a strategic blunder that Modi government has made. How do you see this strategic blunder and the recent embarrassment, by the way, that India has faced at Ladakh? How do you see the situation?
Thank you. So there are two dimensions to it. Once the Prime Minister was saying about the strategic blunder, I mean, on the 5th of August, what BJP-led government has presented the objectives of revocation and doing away with 370 and 35A. Primarily, they were saying that this has actually, in past, due to the presence of these articles, actually, I must say, of course, it has a very strong, backing within the valley, within the people. It was something dealing with the identity of Kashmiris, recognition of their identity as well. So BJP government was giving this idea that it has blocked the economic development and prosperity of the region, particularly Kashmir Valley, and it will further, bring prosperity, peace, and stability, and whatever the narratives they had. Now, if you see after 1 year, nothing has come back. I mean, you see the economic situation of the valley, people, trading community, business communities. If you see the statistics, they have substantially lost everything. Their businesses are lost. Overall, in social environment, you see there was a lockdown, but there was a siege from last 1 year. You can see how socially it could be distressing, how psychologically it could be impacting the people. And see on the political front, there are even pro-Indian parties, the leadership like Mehbooba Mufti, Omar Abdullah, and across the board they were caged. They were jailed. So at the end of the day, when we see that, I mean, India has lost, I must say, pre 5th of August they have lost Kashmir, and now they have absolutely lost Kashmir and Kashmiris, particularly after this action. Because we see two things. One, internally the objectives, not a single objective has been achieved. I mean, Kashmir after 1 year is operating. Most of the time, if you analyze the situation, what have they done is that they have tried to subtract Kashmiri people from the administrative post. Kashmir is there, their administration is working without the Kashmiris. That's the one fundamental objective, I guess, we have seen they have achieved.
Right.
Second, and second, we have seen also that they're issuing the domicile law with domiciles to different people. I mean, by bringing in new law, that is again very much I mean resisted strongly with the people of Kashmir, is because the objective apparently is to change the bring demographic shift and change in Kashmir. So uh, with this, when we see the reaction from the international community, there was an informal discussion, but we see when we read and when we observe in past, even this didn't happen in near past. So international magazine, journals, people, a whole new constituency of people, internationally, scholars and the journalists and other strategic community have been, introduced to this issue, and they're discussing it, and they're discussing its various elements and dimensions, including the human rights at the forefront. So I guess after 1 year, if we see nothing has been achieved, but on the Kashmiri side, of course, the oppression and the suppression has increased manifold. Even the firing on the LOC has increased manifold. People are suffering and losing lives. But on the other side, we have seen that with this, we have seen the Galwan crisis brought another nuclear power into this dispute, one way the other way. And of course, when when the people were saying that this is a nuclear flashpoint, it is going to be proved one way the other way that it has involved major power of the regions. It can destabilize the entire region, and of course, the world cannot remain oblivious to this entire development. Now, the fundamental question is how quickly world realized that. I mean, the statement of our foreign minister about OIC particularly, Pakistan should focus more on bringing it to the international forum, and particularly activating the organization like OIC. They have been asking for the foreign minister level meeting, which is a
Right, right.
forum, I guess, second biggest body. So I guess that is something which we need to understand, that in the resistance, particularly from the
Right,
Kashmiris
Dr.
and
Vikas, you rightly said.
British as well.
You rightly said that Pakistan needs to explore more avenues where Pakistan can raise up the issue. By the way, in last 1 year specifically, Pakistan has raised this issue at various platforms. Ambassador Durrani, this OIC that Dr. Kausar has just mentioned is very interesting. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi also gave a very clear message that Pakistan would take up this issue of Kashmir at every platform, and that we want our friends, especially OIC and Saudi Arabia and other countries, to raise up this issue. And let's say if some of our friends are having any issue with this, Pakistan would go to explore other options. How do you see exploring more avenues, more options for the issue of Kashmir?
I think Pakistan has to be proactive, and it is just not the YC platform. Of course, for the Muslim community, Muslim Ummah, it is very important forum. However, its performance, there's much to be desired as far as its performance is concerned. And even on Palestine, they have gone very slow, and for obvious reasons. So it's just not OIC. I think Pakistan will have to be proactive on all fronts and all over. And here lies the importance of having diplomatic missions. My submission has been, even in the past, that we are just functioning and doing our diplomacy through 84 missions in the way out of 192 countries of the United Nations, the members. So in that respect, I think we have to increase the number of missions. We have to increase the number of envoys who have to sensitize the world. And there has to be a concerted campaign which has to be launched, and it has to be a continuous campaign, because we had hits and starts, if you look at the Kashmir dispute in the past, except for a few Western capitals where demonstrations have been held and all that. I think there's a need for more active approach, not only diplomatically, but also through seminars, through research work, through publication of books. Even TV dramas can, make an impact. I remember when I was posted to India, and there was one drama on Kashmir, and the Indian journalists who with whom I had introduction, and they would say that your dramas are lethal. They would hate otherwise the theme of the story, but when theme of the drama, but they will actually they so that makes an impact. So I'm just giving you out of a large
Right.
spectrum. I'm giving you a few tips which we can do, and then we can do a lot more. And there's need to be done. And what India has done is India has now challenged Pakistan. So we have to accept the challenge. And mind you that you have to rely on your own resources. It is when in movements like this, well, outside support is welcome, but
Right.
ultimately
Right.
you have to rely on your own people, on your
Right, right. Ambassador Durrani and Dr. Kausar, please stay with us online. We're going to take a break. And after the break, we are going to discuss about the regional dynamics and Pakistan's foreign policy. In the last couple of months, we have seen, rather years, that there was a point when Indian Prime Minister Modi was saying that India would isolate Pakistan diplomatically. But few years on, today we see that India is diplomatically isolated in the region, looking at its relations with China, specifically, first of all, its relations with Nepal, for that matter, its relations with Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Iran recently, which dropped India out of its railway project. And the list goes on. The pressure on India is mounting. Hindutva mindset is getting grounds in India, and hence we see the revocation of 370 and 35A. India also had an embarrassing situation with China at Ladakh. So this is going on. But there are more opportunities for Pakistan diplomatically and in terms of diplomacy. How can Pakistan utilize those opportunities? And since we are having this issue of Kashmir with India, it is imperative for Pakistan to look for more avenues and work for the people of Kashmir and their right to self-determination. We'll discuss this after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The regional dynamics are changing. On one side, where we see India using brutal force against the people of Indian occupied Kashmir, we see that Pakistan and China have embarked on a mega economic activity, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and both countries are working on this. And it is not just Pakistan and China. Other countries like Afghanistan and Iran have said in their statements, and they have showed willingness to join this mega economic activity. In recent past, we have seen that India has been getting diplomatically isolated in the region. Before the break, I mentioned about the countries that India has been having issues with: China, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Iran recently, for that matter. So there are very less options for India. If this megalomaniacs kind of people continue to rule India, the situation would be worse for the Indian government and for India itself. But at the same time, there are more opportunities for Pakistan, diplomatic opportunities, economic opportunities. And how is Pakistan going to go on those opportunities, going to make its relations better with the regional powers? That is important. Dr. Kausar, talking about the regional activity, regional alliances that are changing, dynamics that are changing, Pakistan and China are working on a mega economic activity, that is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, that is development. On the other side, we see Indian aggression. What is the new thing that the region is working on? And how do you think that India is getting isolated day by day?
So just before going to answer this question, I just want to connect from the where I left about Kashmir. One thing just I want to add on Kashmir particularly is that not only OIC, of course, and the international forums, but also the society of Pakistan, which is standing with the people of Kashmir on certain principles. Principles of democratic rights, political rights, and fundamental political rights and right of self-determination. I guess
That's right.
that society should also have to be more proactive and sharing and understanding Kashmir, one, and secondly, sharing the untold stories and unheard voices. There are many, many things that have yet to be explored and shared with the world, the ways the society of the Kashmir, due to this occupation, has suffered. So that is,
Right.
I guess, the need of the time within the society particularly. And when we say, as the Honorable President was also saying, the primacy should be given to the voices, the stakeholders, actual stakeholders. Kashmir is particularly the most important because those people are there, those who are bearing, the entire thing, and they are suffering. So I guess that's the time when we need to give them more space to articulate their own, case and support them. On regional thing, I mean, see, this was very much, I guess, predictable in one way or the other. Your domestic policies, of course, reflect your the foreign policy as well. Somehow that's interconnected as well. I mean, once we saw that, I mean, there's a series of events. The way these countries got sort of came into disengagement mode, or maybe slowing down the relationship with India, particularly the neighbor like Bangladesh and Nepal. I mean, we have seen the issue. Four ministers of Bangladesh refused to travel to India at that time because of the CAA thing. Now, other than that, their expansionist policies towards the region, and particularly the issue with Nepal as well, and the Chinese recently. Now, this has to do with their. We have to understand the larger, the politics of the BJP that has been doing. I mean, that has been largely on. We have seen that it is centered on a sort of a very exclusive community constituency, bringing sort of hate against your neighbors, and particularly one minority. I guess that has a ripple effect. One. Second, I guess when we see that India had a lot of confidence in past. I guess maybe their strategic relationship with particularly US has given them a lot of confidence, and they have been very bold in past. But of course, they could not calculate one thing, that once you are internal politically sort of unstable, and particularly you are not that much, there is not a political consensus there within society, there are problems. It must have effect on your economy as well. So we have seen that economy has been slowing down. We have seen that, I mean, the democratic voices, once the India is called as a secular country, we have seen a lot of issues, particularly minorities, religion, building temples, demolishing mosques. I mean, this was not some center voices within India could expect or predict. Of course, this has a wider effect in their society, and particularly in their neighboring countries. So Pakistan, I mean, we have a history of checkered history of relationship, but countries like others, they have also, I guess, since this, they have become the victim of BJP's politics. And I guess this is not, I mean, the country like Iran, the way, I mean, trying to balance US and Iran, it didn't help. Their policy couldn't work well. And within Afghanistan peace process, I guess we have seen that literally they have no role in Afghan peace process. That is indicative of one thing, that India's own domestic policies and their thinking and approach toward the region didn't work.
Rightly said, Dr.
Yeah.
Kausar, and not just that they don't have any role in Afghanistan. Interestingly, last several attacks that were claimed by ISIS, its members who carried out the attack were Indian citizens. So rather we see that India has been a part of the problem, and India has been instigating, financing and supporting terrorist organizations in Afghanistan.
True. That's a very sad part of it. I mean, because if you claim to be a large pivotal in the region to bring more stability, connect the regions if you want an economic prosperity. India has humongous problem of poverty as well, we have seen. I mean, their human development index and indicators and all these things, these are not something which they can cherish. I mean, it was struggling economy in that context as well, and we have seen that now this has gone down, and their overall because one of the things we need to understand, that their overall design toward the region, that we need to understand. If it is very much hostile, it is very much expansionist in nature, of course the nations will react, no matter they are less small in geographical size, but of course their determination, with their determination, with their courage, they will respond. And one thing I must say, I mean, when we say the China, Iran, particularly this deal of $400 billion, of course, that has a different geographical the implications as well. There is also a lesson that, I mean, Iran even issued a lot of statements against BJP's action of, on CAA and other bills as well. So I guess there's a great lesson for people, those who are observing the politics and dealing with Indian politics, that the India politics can work in India maybe, but not the Hindu politics are slashing the minority.
Right. Ambassador Durrani, region's response is changing towards India. Their attitude is changing towards India, and the reason, of course, as we all know, is because of Indian approach towards the region, approach towards settling its issues with its neighbors, and Pakistan can build on this. How can Pakistan build on the opportunities that are there for Pakistan and the way India is getting blows on its diplomacy?
Well, it depends what we expect from our endeavors. I think our endeavor has been and should be to forge peace in the region and make India realize that there's a dividend if the two countries address thorny issues and they address the dispute. This has been Pakistan's endeavor in the past. The reason is that if Indian occupied Kashmir is restless, it is because their rights have been suppressed. Their voices have been suppressed. And that has caused unrest. From India, it has been that their demand has been that we should not say anything. So I think this was Pakistan has a locus standi. Pakistan is a party to the dispute, and Pakistan cannot, do what India wants us to do. So here, a very important thing for us is that we have to create an environment within the region. In fact, Pakistan and China can do a lot in that respect, that they have to create an environment whereby India should see the reason rather than, going for some those actions which can cause unrest as well as, destabilize the whole region. There are extremist elements on both sides who would want both the countries to go for war. War is an option, but war is a disaster and sanity should prevail. And in this respect, I think President Xi Jinping last year, while in Chennai, trilateral meeting between Pakistan, China, and India to address those thorny disputes. However, India had Chinese president's proposal, but at the same time, this is very important to understand that India, whatever action it has taken, it is not going to live with that in peace. There's not going to be peace in India. If they think that Kashmir, they would bludgeon the Kashmiris to submission. That's not going to happen. It has not happened during the past 7 decades, especially the past 3 decades. So it's not going to happen in another 3 decades or 7 decades. So there is something inbuilt problem because Indian leadership, which they promised to the Kashmiri people to have their right to sit in accordance with the UN resolutions. And if the Indians think, Indian government or leadership thinks that they will swallow Kashmir, again, it would be very hard for them. So at the regional level, there is a need to sensitize the whole neighborhood and I ask the globe on a global scale.
I think there's some connectivity issue with Ambassador Afsar Durrani. Dr. Kausar, about these opportunities that are there for the region, for Pakistan and for China. China's stance on Kashmir is very important. The way it has brought up and the way it has made Pakistan raise up this issue at the Security Council. How do you see Pakistan and China's interest? Of course, we stand with the people of Kashmir, but this pressure on India that Pakistan and China are putting at the moment, how do you see this?
In the larger context, I guess when China as a neighbor, I mean, a long-lasting friend, and in the context of particularly Pakistan-China relation, when we see, I guess, when the CPEC was initiated and the other development projects, the idea was to bridge the gaps between the countries in the region in sort of bring economic integration. because this entire region, particularly when we see this region hosts the majority of the population of the world, has humongous resources, enough potential to rise in the global, arena in economy, in politics, in other ways as well. So I guess there was a lot of missed opportunities in past as well, and that, of course, as rightly mentioned by Ambassador Saab as well, because once you have a political dispute, and until unless you resolve those core issues, things do not move forward. Even you create some sort of environment, but at the end of the day, if there is not a very much justified solution of some political problem like Kashmir, things don't move. Now, China, of course, have been a very much a strong supporter of Pakistan, and particularly over Kashmir. We have seen that. Uh, that's why I mean we have to see it in a larger context. That it has also China has also a standpoint on the Ladakh and all those areas. And of course, when the Union Territory status was given, it was not only given to Jammu and Kashmir. I mean, Jammu and Kashmir was one, and then the Ladakh also is the second Union Territory. Of course, people were anticipating, people are writing on that, and there was clear, warnings to the political elite of India that it would have a regional implication as well. So of course, states have interest. So interest of the Pakistan and China, of course, are in many areas. They coincide, and they have been supporting each other in particularly CPAC. So in that larger context, I guess China also sees that a destabilized region is not the interest of the China as well, and it also stood with the Pakistan's principal position on Kashmir, which is that the right of self-determination should be given to the people of Jammu and Kashmir, no matter what decision they take. But that's a fundamental political thing.
Right.
In past, I mean, we have seen that there have been a lot of efforts, to bring sort of create dialogue mechanism, sort of bring a conducive environment between these in the region. But it's the repeated exercises, and what we have understood is that at the end of the day, it's the core dispute actually that has to be addressed. That was not addressed in that way, and it again, sort of brought regions in a way that China, India, particularly in the Galwan Valley and other areas, we have seen that at Dagestan. I mean, there have been some casualties as well. So this again, I guess, in Chinese larger policy, this of course this Kashmir issue is very much important for the regional peace and security, and I guess this region, this entire development and progress cannot be achieved. I guess the
Right.
peace in Islamabad, Delhi, and other runs through Srinagar. I guess if that
Right.
is solved, I guess things could move forward and ahead. Because keeping the potential of this region in nature, there can be a lot of development, prosperity, and all these things, provided with the right mind and the right leadership that understand the overall potential and the issues, particularly the issue of Jammu and Kashmir.
Right. Dr. Kaushal, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. Ambassador Durrani, my last question, how do you think that the diplomatic partnership of Pakistan and China regarding Kashmir is going to play out in future?
I think the best would be to see how the Indian media and the Indian commentators are, reacting to that. And I think it has unnerved.
Right. Thank you so much, Ambassador Asif Durrani. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. We discussed Kashmir, illegally occupied Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, and the atrocities in Kashmir continue. The Indian forces have been attacking ambulances, hospitals, women and children, elderly, each and every day. Each and every day is a struggle for the people of Kashmir. Pakistan stands with the people of Kashmir, and Pakistan stands for their right to self-determination. Thank you for watching today's dialogue. See you next time. Khuda Hafiz.